is the wide receiver group. These wide receivers, and a lot of people are talking about the Canales offense in Tampa Bay. Last year, they carried 5 wide receivers. We've heard a lot of good things about Jonathan Mingo, positives about Terrace Marshall. What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here, your host of the Two Growls One Roar podcast. Folks, we are excited as we plan our trip, just one day, over, down, whatever you want to call it, to Charlotte to see the Carolina Panthers in action in training camp for the first time. But there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last few days. Fan Fest, injury updates, Julius Peppers getting ready to go into the Hall of Fame. We got to see the new kickoff rules in action. We're not going to talk about the new kickoff rules today, even though I kind of just threw that in there. We got a lot to digest. And folks, I'm changing up the show just a little bit. It's not super fancy, but we're trying to take it up just a notch. Number one, can't do this for every episode, but I always love to stand. So when I have the opportunity to, and I'm home and I'm alone and nobody's around and I can yell in the house, I will stand all day. But we've got a presentation. I've got sound bites. I've got visuals. It's not top of the line, but I think at least for an engagement standpoint, I hope you appreciate it. Let's jump right in. All right, y'all. Got the fancy, dancy, semi-fancy Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hey, folks, welcome, right? Welcome to the show. Let's officially kick this thing off. Oh, look at those fancy transitions. Not really. I just like the kid. Agenda for you today. We're going to talk about a few things. One thing that's not listed here are recent transactions. Again, it's a lot to keep up with. If you're an average fan or if you're just tuned in, I got to get you up to speed. So we're going to get you up to speed with the latest transactions, who's hurt, who's cut, who's waived, who's signed. We'll have everything laid out easily for you. Then we're going to talk about Fan Fest that happened in Clemson last night. I got a few sound bites from the presser after that. Let's talk about the tight end room. There's some issues there. Available quarterbacks, which you'll know why I'm talking about available quarterbacks once we get through the sound bites. Julius Peppers going into the Hall of Fame. And, hey, headed to training camp, so always fun to talk about that. Transactions. Let's get right into this, folks. I'm not going to go back. If you've watched the previous episodes, we've gone through the 19th, 20th, 23rd, and 25th, as well as the 26th. So you're caught up from a transaction standpoint. One thing that's happened this past week that I did not have a chance to talk about is Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny, in my opinion, was, I thought, on the bubble of maybe being the 4th running back. Should we take 4 running backs? Or the Carolina Panthers should take 4 running backs. That did not happen. Rashad Penny, right before we go out in the pads, and it wasn't exactly, like as they're walking out to the field, but he lets Canales know that he's retiring. I want to wish him the best. I wish all these guys the best. I know the beatings that these guys put themselves through, the pain that comes with it, haven't played the sport, not even make it nearly as far as them. So I wish him the best. Now, there was a corresponding transaction, continuing to see wide receivers pile up here. Tavion Robinson was the addition to balance out the roster to get us to 90. Then, following that, unfortunately, another injury happened. Dawood Davis, UFL superstar. I call him a superstar. He was on the All-Pro or All-UFL team at the wide receiver position. I thought, hey, this guy's going to be a sleeper to make the roster. Unfortunately, he got hurt, so he's out. And when you get hurt in training camp, I mean, it's like next man up. When you've got 90 players that you can maintain, it's getting a new body. We don't really have time. We got to evaluate. We got to, address each of these needs. Corresponding move to that is signing running back Dylan Johnson. So they balance each other out. A running back retires, they sign one. A running back gets waived because they're injured, they sign one. And then recently, we got news about Steven Sullivan, a tight end that showed a few flashes here. He was placed on injured reserve, never a good thing. Now it is early. I personally haven't gotten into the details of if that means he is out for the entire year, because there are some designations at this point of the year. If you are on IR, then you may be out for the year. I don't know if it's that. We'll learn more as we get into this. And signed tight end Curtis Hodges. I just looked up Curtis Hodges. He's an undrafted free agent out of Arizona State. Spent the last 2 seasons with the Commanders. Not really any production, but the guy is 6'8", a 6'8" tight end. Big, big dude. Those are your transactions. Lots to talk about. We're going to talk about quarterbacks and tight ends, where that room stands in a minute. One thing that we should monitor is the wide receiver group. These wide receivers, and a lot of people are talking about the Canales offense in Tampa Bay. Last year, they carried 5 wide receivers. We've heard a lot of good things about Jonathan Mingo, positives about Terrace Marshall, Amir Smith-Marset, Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson. You start stacking up those names, and you're like, oh, are we gonna have room to carry? Are we going to carry 6? I think it is a strong possibility, especially considering the changes in the return rules. But FanFest was last night in Clemson. I saw quite a few folks. I guess FanFest, which originally was at Bank of America Stadium, and I can only speak from one experience, which was last year's experience. And I got to tell you, last year was great. We got to go in, you got to see a practice. It was not a scrimmage, but you did get to see a live practice. They had the light show, the music. It was a fun family event, and it felt like quite a decent size in attendance there for this event. Now you hear Back Together, which was typically held at Wofford, was held at Bank of America on this past Saturday, and the turnout for that was not great. Wasn't great at all, and a lot of people talked about it. Now, I think if you had taken that same crowd and put them in Wofford, Gibbs Stadium, that, yeah, it would have looked like a packed house. Like, that's my personal opinion. Like 16, 17,000 would have easily fit in there. But people complaining that it was early, that they didn't know about it, they didn't know that Back Together was happening. So I think it's marketing. And hey, you can't, like, I'm so plugged in that I'm like, of course I knew about it. But as a casual person who may follow the team, I think there's a legitimate case for them to say, I didn't know about it. You flip that over, and they take FanFest. They want to keep 2 states, 1 team. They want to keep South Carolina involved. They go back to where it all started at Clemson. Remember, way back in the day, this was when I was a baby. I mean, what, 2 or 3, a toddler, I guess. They would bust down. So they recreated that experience of busting down to Clemson, taking it all in. You know, Dom Capers, of course, as a part of the coaching staff, got to soak it in as well. They spent time with Clemson, with Dabo, with the entire staff there. And the turnout was not fantastic. Now, I don't have clips of the turnout, but if you are on X, you saw or you've seen, or you can go look, it's not great. Not a great turnout. And so the question was, in my mind, was this a success? Now, we can talk about the on-field things, because we did hear a lot of good about Bryce Young. We're going to get into some sound bites here in a minute. But I think overall, the practice itself went well. And I think coming back to South Carolina is a great idea. But this is a Thursday night. I mean, you know, I think it would have been better suited to do something like this on the weekends, possibly in a smaller stadium. Like, heck, why not go back to Wofford? I won't question that piece, but I do think from a success standpoint, I wonder if they'll continue this. I'm not, you know, I don't have every sound bite, but it feels like maybe this is going to be a thing to keep that history alive of playing down in Clemson, and maybe it grows. Maybe it grows as people get used to, hey, this is what happens. This is where we go. We'll be looking forward. And a lot of things are going to happen when you win football games. I think the projected total attendance was like 17,000. I know there had to be more than that last year at FanFest. It's a football town already, and Clemson football by itself is a big enough thing. So I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if I would say it is or isn't a success, because I was not at the events. I think it's great, in my opinion, to still try to keep South Carolina involved.
And he's got a quad injury.
We talked a lot about what happened. Now, one of the things that was noticed coming into this was that Andy Dalton did not play. So we got to address that, or Dave Canales got to address that after in this presser. And we found out Andy Dalton is hurt. And when asked about this, sounds like Dave Canales is going to be looking for another quarterback, which makes sense. Well, let's hear the soundbite here when he was asked about Oops, sorry, y'all. See, this is what I get for technology. We'll let this run.
Andy's got a quad injury right now, and so we're just trying to get him back. I'm not sure exactly of the timeline. It's a couple of weeks, but we'll work him through it. And it was good for Jack Plummer to get out there to get those reps. Started off that first possession, missed a couple of open guys, just high. Part of the jitters. It's part of it. It's so good to just see him work through that, settle himself.
So Andy Dalton hurt, quad injury. You hear there a couple weeks, few weeks, as far as the timing. TBD on when he's going to be back. So you really do have Bryce Young and Jack Plummer. And a funny thing about this whole situation, like if you've been in the weeds like I have since day one, Dave Canales originally talked about having a third quarterback that was a veteran on the roster, someone who was experienced as the backup. Now you have Jack Plummer, undrafted free agent out of Louisville, and you're going to be trying to find a fourth to bring onto the roster until Andy's healthy, which you got to have that extra body. I mean, you just need those arms. We already know Hecker and Jansen are out there throwing snaps to DBs as quarterbacks. So you definitely need another body in camp during training camp. The thing about this, when you talk about bringing over a fourth quarterback, is you're really going to be bringing somebody over for a very short amount of time. I'm thinking 2 or 3 weeks, however long training camp is until that August cut. So maybe a month. So you've got to talk someone, hey, yeah, we're going to need you here for a few weeks. Maybe it is an audition. But it's hard to think you're going to get a veteran, which we'll talk about the list here in a second, that would want to come to Carolina right now. So we may be looking at someone who is an undrafted free agent again versus one of these veterans. So I do think I would look for the Panthers to get that addressed pretty quickly. Now we'll move on to Jadeveon Clowney, who one thing he did get to talk about, it's funny, all these South Carolina Gamecock players going back to Clemson. Clowney did talk about, which I don't have the sound bite of his experience playing at Clemson. They were undefeated during those years, the Spurrier years. We know, at least I do, because I closely follow between Clemson and South Carolina, that was, a dominant run for the Gamecocks. Clemson's rebounded here a little bit, hoping the rivalry kind of evens out, because I think it's great to have both teams competitive. Anyways, Clowney was here talking about fellow edge opposite of him, DJ Johnson. Clavon Chasen has been getting a lot of first-team reps with Wonham out, but it sounds like DJ Johnson is really coming alive, and let's hear what Clowney had to say about him.
Definitely one of the best edge setters that we have out there, like setting the edge, stop and run. DJ definitely brings that physicality to the game, and you need that out of the guys around. It's a physical game. This is most definitely what you're going to need to stop the run in this league, physicality. So for him to be over there setting the edge and doing that, that's good for the team.
Very high praise. And for me personally, someone that's given DJ Johnson a lot of grief last year on picking him where we did. It was never a him thing. It was just where he was picked, because we always felt like, we could have drafted him much later than we did. I'm excited to hear that he's doing well. And you probably are like, well, setting the edge, what does that really mean? I want pressure. Having an outside linebacker that can set the edge is extremely important in this defensive scheme for the Carolina Panthers. And the reason for that, when you technically only have the three defensive linemen, the backers on the outside, it's the backers, that edge outside the linebacker's job to contain things that are around it. Because what happens if they get outside of you? I mean, they're pretty much in no man's land. So your job on the edge is to set it. And by that means is, one, not going up inside too far, because as soon as you go inside and crash down, that's where you get reverses, where you get sweeps that come back. So you're crashing down. As soon as you crash down, they come around. A lot of that has to do usually with option. You see it more in college football, Pop Warner, high school, lower levels, that crashing down usually results in some bad things. Although you still see it in the NFL. But it's important, man. And for him to take that step, and I think he will hopefully grow with the pressures and getting to the quarterback, but having that edge setter and having his stock rise, because we're going to need it, considering we don't know about Barno and when he's going to be healthy, and or DJ Wonham right now. So I like it. Last thing, we heard from Chuba Hubbard, running back one for the Carolina Panthers. Someone asking, it continues to be questions. Bryce Young. I clipped this because I liked what he said. He said, Bryce Young is going to be coming back to prove people wrong this year. Let's hear exactly what he said.
As an offense, I feel like we improved. Bryce continues to great every single practice. I've kind of said it over and over. I don't want to speak too much on it. Everyone's kind of had their criticism on him. He's going to show everyone this year, and I don't want to speak too much on it.
There you go. Straight from Chuba. I do think, again, I haven't been in person, but all the clips that I've seen from Bryce, the protection, the plays, all the folks I've talked to, I do think it's going to be a big year. I'm bullish on my stock price in him. And, I kind of set the bar very low as far as my thoughts on expectations with yardage. I do know we're going to be a heavy run team. That was another thing that was talked about. I know we're going to run the ball. That's going to be our identity, the Panthers' identity. But I do think Bryce is going to kind of show people that who he is and prove a lot of people wrong, at least for my sake. I hope so. All right. Talk about the tight end room. So we hear about or know that Tommy Tremble is being sidelined. Technically not on the report. You don't really have a true injury report right now. So you're either hurt and on the side or you're on IR and he's not. So we have Tommy Tremble battling an injury, waiting to recover. We can only hope that means his recovery is going to be in time for the regular season. Still plenty of time, over a month away. I'm not too concerned. You have Jatavian Sanders, who is stepping up, the rookie tight end who made a touchdown catch last night, is starting to see more reps. But really right now your room is Jatavian Sanders, Ian Thomas, who remains one of the best blocking tight end on the roster, although I know he's made some flashes in camp. And then Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews and Mike Case talked about this a lot with the carryover that he's had following him in his career. I think Jordan Matthews also is someone that now, with all these injuries that have happened, there's a good chance that he makes it. So right now, you're probably looking at Trimble, Sanders, Thomas, and Jordan Matthews on the roster for tight ends. Steven Sullivan placed on IR, like I said earlier, and then Curtis Hodges was just signed. So staying busy. And remember, Curtis Hodges, I just talked about, was the 6'8" undrafted free agent, played with Commanders. So there you go. All right, we talk about tight ends. Let's talk about quarterbacks, because we heard Canales say they want to bring in a fourth quarterback, really be a third that's being used right now. The list of available quarterbacks, this is from Spotrac. You have Ryan Tannehill. I'd cross Ryan Tannehill off the list. I think with some of these other injuries with Herbert, Smith, I don't see Tannehill coming here, considering I think he is still a viable option for a competitive team. Brian Hoyer, almost 39 years old, tons of experience. So if that's what Canales wants to lean on and he wants to come here and throw around for a few weeks, then so be it. Blaine Gabbert, who recently spent time with Kansas City, 34 going on almost 35. Then we get into A.J. McCarron, Matt Barkley, Trevor Siemian, Logan Woodside, and Ben DiNucci. So only got 2 years of experience. So these are the guys that have played and been in the league. You still have undrafted free agent quarterbacks that are on the market. So you get up a college kid that gets picked up and added to the roster. I would expect them to do this pretty quickly. Like, I don't know how soon they want to make a move, possibly bringing in a few guys for tryouts, but I think they would want to get this addressed so that, you have an additional quarterback there to help in the rotation, throwing in camp. It gets busy, man, throwing a lot of balls around, which I know it's their job, but it does take a toll on you. All right, man, the one and only Julius Peppers heading into the Hall of Fame could not be more deserving. I'm extremely biased, one, because he played at the University of North Carolina, one of the best players, put up there with Lawrence Taylor in North Carolina history, gets drafted here in North Carolina to play for the Carolina Panthers. We know about his career, went about the job well, man. And I know he bounced around Chicago, Green Bay, landed back here to finish off his career, which I think was fantastic to have him come back home. Couldn't be more deserving, and the first player drafted by the Carolina Panthers to make it into the Hall of Fame. I'm excited to see him inducted. I don't know what the lineup looks like. Like, I would assume he's got to be pretty late. Like, if they put the better people on late, I would think he'd be later in the ceremony. But big congratulations to him. I mean, football, basketball star, dude could do it all. Only person, to play in a Final Four and a Super Bowl. What a stat line. I don't know that we'll ever, see that crossover again. So congratulations to the one and only Julius Peppers. Oh, well, this is not the graphic. I guess we'll take it down and close out. Headed to training camp, folks. We are headed down to training camp. Could not be more excited. Again, I wish it could be days and we get to go to see 2 or 3 practices and have all that fun and get to meet all you awesome folks. It's just going to be one day. We'll be up there on Saturday. I'm going to record as much as they will allow me to. We'll do a vlog episode. That's right. All totally different vlog that walks you through us and our journey going up there, having a little bit of fun. If you're going to be there, please reach out. I'd love to get connected. If not, I'll share everything I can. We'll do a post-reaction episode. And until next time, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.